Hey everybody, Gary here with Guitar Tricks, and in this video I'm going to show you how to get started with power chords. We're going to start with one finger power chords, move on to two finger, and then three finger. We're going to go over how to play them with the left hand so that you can really rock out with the right hand. That's often where people run into problems with power chords, is that although it's easy to play, to really rock out with the right hand, we have to mute the other strings, and that gives us that freedom to really dig in with the right hand. And of course, we're going to talk about what is a power chord anyway, what's the theory behind that, how can we use it, and what genres is it most associated with. But before we do, please go ahead and click subscribe so that you get all of the latest and greatest content from Guitar Tricks. And if you want to be notified of any new lesson, be sure to tap the bell and let us know in the comments what you'd like to see in future lessons. That's where we're always looking for ideas. So a power chord is just taking any one note, let's say the note A, open A string, and then playing the fifth, the interval of a fifth of the A. So the interval of a fifth, if we think about two A's, an octave, so open A and A on the 12th fret. The note E is what we call the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the note E separates the octave perfectly in half. It vibrates at exactly 1.5 times the frequency of the A. So E, this E, vibrates at 1.5 times the frequency of this A. So to talk about the theory for a second, in terms of those harmonic intervals, it's such a complementary interval. It's the most neutral sounding complementary interval. There's no tension, but what it does add is power. So when we play this A and this E, I'm going to play it here, together, we have this very complementary, powerful sound. It's not major, it's not minor, there's no tension, there's no dissonance, it just adds a little bit of power. So me playing A and E at the same time is more powerful than just playing A, right? This is just A, this is A and E, right? So that is kind of such a huge part of the sound of rock, is just taking any single note riff and turning it into power chords. So let's say I wanted to go A, D, 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 E. Now I'm going to play that as power chords. Much cooler, right? Okay. So that's the theory of a power chord. So how do we do that in the most simple way possible? Open position. If you're familiar with the band AC/DC, what was amazing about them is they took basic A, D, and E power chords and made dozens of songs that all were unique and sounded great, but still also sounded like AC/DC. So I'm just going to give you the keys to the kingdom here. I'm going to show you these three power chords, and you can make up your own riffs with them. So if we start with A, we have that open A string. And notice how I'm using just a classic distortion tone. I've got a distortion pedal, just a basic distortion, right? Just to get that rock sound. So I'm going to start with my A, and I'm going to play the note E, which is directly below it on the 2nd fret, and play those together. There's my A power chord. I'm using my index finger. I'm just putting that index finger right on that 2nd fret. And what I'm actually doing is trying to mute the strings underneath my index finger, at least the two right below, with the flesh. Now what that allows me to do is kind of rock out a little bit. And I could even put my thumb on the low E string like this. So now I'm really free with my right hand. And you're only hearing two strings, even though I'm kind of touching at least 4 or 5 with my pick. So that's kind of the secret with power chords and rock music, is having control over the other strings so that you can really dig in without hearing this. This is what happens if I don't mute the other strings. That's not an A power chord at all. It's an A power chord among a bunch of open strings. So then I go to the D, open D string. And then second fret right below it, which is the note A, D, E, F, G, A. That's the fifth of D. So D and A together create a D power chord. And again, I'm trying to mute the strings right below it. Now the cool thing with the D power chord, if you hit the A by accident, the open A, it's not going to sound bad. So you go. But what I like to do when I play that D power chord is just start on the D with my right hand and strum down. This way I don't have to worry about the E and the A, but I could kind of have more freedom going down as long as I mute these top two strings. Then let's go to E. Low E string, and the fifth of E is B, E, F, G, A, B. Same thing. Notice I'm managing to mute all four of these high strings with the flesh of my index finger. If I didn't do that, it would sound like this. Still a cool chord. That's actually called an E minor 7. Not a bad chord, but not the power chord sound I'm looking for. Now let's see if we can go A, D, 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 E, 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 E. Yeah, okay. A 4 times, D 4 times, 8 times on the E. 1, 2, here we go. A to the D to the E. Stay on the E. Right? And then I could put them together in all sorts of ways. Okay, now another thing you can do is add the octave. This is a 3-note power chord. So let's say I did A, then E, then there's another A right beneath the E. So really it's still just 2 notes, A and E, but we play the A twice. That's a 3-note power chord. And in that case, I flatten out my index finger. But I angle it in a way that the B string gets muted. So you got to get the angle just right. And in order to get it just right, you just got to be really mindful of how it sounds and test yourself. Like, okay, I got it. If I press too much, I don't want that sound. That's the second fret of the B string. I'm not looking for that sound. Okay, then when I get to the D, because of the tuning of the B string, it's a little different. I go open D, then second fret on the G string, and then third fret on the B string. So it's like a partial D chord. And then for the E, just like the A, I just bar the second fret of the A and D string and try to mute out the G string underneath. So that would be like this. So now I'm going to do 4, 4, and 8 like I did earlier on A, D, and E. 1, 2, 3, 4. Little bit heavier sounding with all 3 notes, right? A little thicker. Okay, now I want to show you one more way to play power chords up higher on the neck. Now there's lots of ways, but I want to get you started with the main ways, which is using the lower notes of the guitar to create that real heavy rock sound. We could play high power chords, but we're going to stick with the lower ones. So let's go to A again. So here's A on the 5th fret of the low E string. Now, the 5th is over 2 frets down 1 string. So I'm going to take my ring finger and play the root and the 5th. Now to me, these are easier to mute open strings than the open position, because this index finger now can just easily rest over all those open strings like this. That's what you're going for. Notice my index finger, it's kind of a little bit on an angle this way. It's not dead center. It's a little bit on an angle. I bring my elbow in. My ring finger just touches that 7th fret of the A string with the tip of the finger. And my index does all the muting. So I'm really rocking out all 6 strings like Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day. You know, but you're only hearing 2 notes. Now, the higher up on the neck, the easier this is to play. When you get down to first position, it's a bit of a stretch, right? Okay, now, if we want to add the octave, we just put our pinky right below the index finger. The octave is over 2, down 2. So that's A, E, and then A again. Right? Now, let's say I want to play the D. Move everything down 1 string. And now my index finger is on a D on the 5th fret of the A string. And I'm muting the low E string with the tip of the index. Right? And I'm still muting the open strings with the index as well. So now I have... But again, I could just do a 2-finger. Almost the same sound, a little bit easier. So I don't need that pinky at all. Here's the difference. 2-finger, 3-finger, 2-finger, 3-finger, single note. Huge difference from the single note, but the difference between the 2-finger and 3-finger, not so dramatic. Okay, awesome. Then E, up 2 frets. 7th fret, 9th fret, 9th fret. 7, 9, 9, right? There's a 3-finger or a 2-finger. So now I'm just going to mess with A, D, and E. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rock and roll, right? If I did that as single notes, not quite as rock and roll, right? Let me do it with 3-finger now. That was 2-finger. Right? So now you can take that and create any riff you want. Don't worry about what key it's in. I'm just going to pick 3 random frets. 2, 6, 9. I did not think about that. Let's see how that sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Kind of funky. I like it. Let me do 2, 6, 9 on the 2 on the E string, 6 and 9 on the A string. So I went 6, 9 on the A, then 6, 9 on the E, right? Just cool sound. Then you add some lyrics. I'm putting power chords together, making rock songs in 5 seconds. I'm putting these power chords right now. Right? So much punk rock has this sound. Like I mentioned, AC/DC. That's not an AC/DC song, just something they may have played something similar to that. You know, of course, grunge rock. You could arpeggiate them. That one's kind of metal sounding. So that was A to C to B. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that intro to power chords. Something you can start playing right away. You could start mixing and matching them, making your own songs. And anytime you see a chord progression, if you don't know the full chord, major or minor, you could also just play the power chord and that'll work because it's not major or minor. It's missing the one note that distinguishes major and minor, which is the third. So it only has a root and a fifth. But before we go any deeper, I hope you enjoyed that lesson. If you want to learn more about playing guitar, head over to guitartricks.com. There's a library of high-quality song lessons, step-by-step courses on guitar fundamentals, blues, rock, and country, a guitar toolbox, and so much more. Happy playing, and I'll see you in the next lesson.